This episode of ArcaSpeak is supported by Infratech. Bring indoor comfort to outdoor living with Infratech comfort heaters.
This episode is also supported by Enscape, empowering your design workflow by turning your BIM model into an immersive 3D experience.
So I connected with a guy on Instagram. We've been kind of chatting back and forth via Instagram, and he was, talking about, like, he's been a fan of the show, been listening to it a lot. He recently moved to Alabama, and he was looking into going to Auburn. And so, he was asking, he goes, I know that you went to Auburn, so, if you want to give me like any advice that you want, I'd love to hear it. And so we've been kind of chatting back and forth, asking me about, like, why do I love Auburn architectural program so much? And, I could be a poster boy for, like, singing a lot of the different praises of, like, opportunities that it offers. And rural studio, urban design studio, study abroad, all of these different things that a lot of other programs have as well. And it's just like, what makes, Auburn stand out amongst some of those? And so he actually, like, the other day just kind of stumped me on one of them. And he's just like, I've been looking at all these different programs, and I noticed that Auburn doesn't have the IPAL program. So anyway, he was asking me about the IPAL program, and it's just like, why doesn't Auburn have one yet? And it's the integrated path to architectural licensure, which is the
NCARB thing.
The NCARB thing, which is the evolution of the programs to be able to have a path where you can do your AXP.
They changed that one. I'll give you a mulligan there.
Yeah, exactly. It used
to be IDP.
Yeah, IDP. Now it's AXP.
Because intern became a bad word.
And, it was interesting. Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, well, and I started talking about, kind of my own personal opinions about, this path to licensure that, is immediately after school. And, there's two trains of thought here. There's the initial thought of just like, well, I'd really love for students to be able to have all of these different choices, but I really do feel like professionals need a bit more experience. And I will be the first to admit that I wasn't quite sure how a lot of these universities are integrating the IPAL program and, what makes their IPAL program different than, like, the traditional path.
Yeah.
Because traditional path at Auburn, it's going to give you a lot of, like, hands-on situations where if you're out at the rural studio, you're not only going to be designing stuff for real clients, you're actually going to be building that stuff for real clients. And to me, that's valuable. I mean, that's valuable beyond valuable in many cases, because it really lets you understand how things go together. I mean, like, if you're designing something and you can't even figure out how to build what you've drawn, then maybe you should draw it a little bit better, or
dig into it, right?
Or dig into it.
Or talk to somebody who has that experience and get them to weigh in on it early, right?
Exactly. And so, I started to do a little bit more digging, and I was looking into the University of Florida's IPAL program, which I believe they might have been one of the test programs. And I know that there's a lot of different universities now have picked up the IPAL program. USC in your neck of the woods, Texas A&M, where buddy of the show, Andrew Hawkins, teaches at, and so he was just asking me a little bit further about it. And so digging into it more, one of the things that we've always talked about in the past is how there's this huge disconnect between, well, let's just maybe not huge disconnect, but there's a disconnect, in my own personal opinion, between academia and the profession. And, we always complain about, well, school's not really preparing you guys for the profession, and the profession is expecting more out of students when they come out and things like that. And so I really see this growing advantage of this IPAL program, because you're going through your courses of study. And it's going to take a totally different kind of student to kind of go through some of these programs, because you're going to be required to not only go through your courses of study, not only go out and get experience and,
Right.
years of experience.
The
But
AXP
then,
portion of it.
yeah, you have to fulfill the full AXP portion of licensure and then basically go through all of the tests and to be able to graduate with that. And I don't know, I didn't get too far into how long that extends your course of study. Does it take like your 5-year program? Does it turn it into a 6-7 year program?
I think the idea is that it doesn't, but yeah, I'm not sure either.
And again, there's a lot that I've got to continue to look into it. But the more and more I started to look at it, the more and more I started to kind of like let down my guard of like, oh, this is kind of a bad idea, because you're just kind of like rushing people into licensure without having any real experience. And it really is a path of both experience and academic study. And so what's interesting is that, like everything that I'm like hoping for a recent graduate or a new graduate to be when they come out of school is really kind of built into this IPAL program. This is not as bad of an idea as I actually once thought it was. I mean, I always look at my path. My path was really long because I really felt like I needed to gain like all of this years of experience. And I didn't feel like, you could call yourself an architect without at least 10 years of experience. And this was like this whole like mentality from the Army. It's like, you can't become what you want to be without all of the experience.
Without going through it all first. Yeah,
without going through it all first. And dumb idea. I mean, trust me.
I don't know. There's definitely there are huge benefits to that side as well. You can't ignore that for sure. So I don't know that it's not a dumb idea.
Well, it wasn't, but honestly, I put these weird limitations on my own career path that in a way stifled some of my career path as I was going forward, because they're like, you've got all of this experience, you've got all of this knowledge, but you don't have the license yet.
Right.
And you're like, and I'm like, ugh.
But I feel like I don't have enough experience to get the. Yeah, everybody gets caught up in this kind of imposter syndrome feeling, or somebody else telling them they can't do something because they don't have XYZ credential.
Exactly. And, it's just like, here I am, like basically doing projects that my peers who are licensed have never done in their career and probably may never do in their career. And they're just like, well, big difference is I've got a license, you don't. So I'm an architect, you're not. And you're just like, how can you really say that I'm not an architect when I've like basically done all these different buildings? And I get it. I'm not, I wasn't. I mean, At the end of the day, I was just like, wow, did I really do myself a disservice? It didn't mean that I didn't have any less experience.
Right.
But I had that one elusive kind of like credential that I remember one time we were all sitting at one of the AIA conventions with all of our friends, and we were sitting, and it was in Atlanta. We were sitting at the barbecue joint, and there was this like weird like whisper going around. It's just like,
who's an architect?
Cormac's not an architect. Like everybody at the table was licensed except for me. Yet I had more experience than half, if not almost all of that table.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, right? For sure. It's like when a doctor graduates, they're licensed to practice medicine, and I wouldn't necessarily want a fresh out of school.
I hear you, and weirdly, that is some of like the comparisons that I was making. Is just like, I wouldn't want somebody designing this big commercial building fresh out of school and being able to sign and seal it if they don't understand like all of these ramifications of all the different coordination that it takes and all of these things that they really haven't gone through.
Yeah.
And the more that I think about it, it's like, they're really not going to be doing that. I mean, if they do anything that, kind of like wing it on your own, I mean, admit to me, because I'll admit to you that like I was designing houses right out of school, and I mean, they were good, well-designed, competent buildings that I sought out structural engineers and people like that, knowing that there's some limitations.
That is architecture, right? I mean, there's
exactly.
Yeah, it's a team effort.
Exactly.
that many single people like to take all the credit for.
And it's so funny that I look at like my path, and then I look at this other path, this IPAL path. Mm-hmm. And, when I look at it, and it's just like, they will be working, they will be gaining experience. They will actually be working side by side with these long seasoned architects that are really going to kind of like guide them and say, look, design wise, sure, you could probably handle like some of the design factors, but it's all of those other things. It's all of those other collaborations that you really need to kind of like reach out for. And, if we're doing these IPAL graduates any justice, then we're preparing them in a much more rigid way to deal with the complexities of the profession. Because when you get licensed, you essentially, you assume a sense of liability, not just responsibility, but liability, that if they're trained properly, they're going to know that, oh crap, if I think my ego is greater than my abilities and I just go out and take all of this stuff out, I need to realize that I'm on the hook for all of this. And then they'll seek out all of those people and they'll work with whoever they need to for a successful delivery of that project.
Yeah, you said rigid. I think you meant rigorous because
rigorous.
Well, then I wonder, does architecture school need to actually be more rigorous than it already is? Because, man, they've already packed so much into there. How do you actually layer this in and make it where it doesn't literally kill people to go through school to do this thing that has so much liability attached to it? I don't know. There's just so many kind of competing forces in this equation.
Well, let's ask this question, though. Is the rigor of architectural school now versus, say, the rigor of architectural school that is geared towards this path to licensure?
Well, it could absolutely be rethought and made better. I hope it is, yeah.
And I'll say that, again, just kind of starting to dive into my understanding of it. Not only did I read the kind of like the outline of the concept of the program on the NCARB website, then, I kind of like started watching like testimonial videos and started reading a couple of other little articles. And so a lot of these conversations are, need more study on mine just to kind of understand, but it really is that they are really kind of gearing these particular things. Think about like all of the technical schools that are teaching architecture, that students who come out of those schools are geared more towards, like, say, being able to like jump into documentation and things like that. And so I see that it's this interesting merging. I mean, most of the time we want graduates. Well, I'm just going to speak from my own personal experience. I've got, a handful of recent graduates on my team, and they've come from a couple of different universities from around the area. And some are more technically oriented. Some are more kind of like design and theory oriented. And, we don't want to lose any of those kind of masteries of, or at least understanding of those skills. It's what we want to do is make sure that they have a little bit of everything and understanding how to use all of that at the right time in the appropriate place and everything else. Almost gearing the educational program to how AXP works and how the testing works.
Like breaks it into these modules that give you a wide range of experience.
Exactly, which is the one thing that I feel like, I'm just going to speak for myself, and you can chime in if you'd like, but I don't think that, as much of the experience that I gained at Auburn and loved every bit of it, I think that looking at it critically towards, like, say, AXP and the AREs, they didn't give me all of that. And if that's like the basic knowledge that we're guiding architects, that's the code minimum of architects.
There you go.
We're not preparing them for the code minimum. And so I'd love to like be able to have that a little bit more expanded in a lot of these programs, because they're all great programs. It's just, and I'm speaking generality here, but, just from my experience with interactions of, like, say, the GSD folks, they are so very theory oriented. They are so very like design and theory oriented. Right. And so I had another friend work with a handful of GSD grads where he was more technically oriented, and he was doing a lot of like the technical grunt work, where they were doing kind of like the theory, design, and all of that other stuff. And, he kind of felt a little out of place because he felt like he was equal match in design, but he wasn't quite like viewed upon that way. And
so that's what he thought. Yeah.
Well, that's what he thought. But to be quite honest with you, I mean, knowing the guy, I mean, he was actually on par design wise with, I mean, he was like one of the best that, graduated with me.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, and I really felt like he was one of the best. And so when he went and worked for this firm, which is a very nationally recognized or internationally recognized design, studio, he was pigeonholed into being the kind of like PM path, the technical side of things, the technical project architect type path. And he was just like, oh man, I really want to design too.
He was letting other people tell him what to do.
Yeah.
Life choices scale.
Or he was also, in that position where, not only were people telling him, but he was also having to I think it was a symbiotic relationship. I mean, the last time that I talked with him, he was just talking about it's now become, he's gained what he graduated in 97. So he's got plenty of career, 25 plus years of career in him. And he sees that symbiotic relationship between the technically oriented architects and the design oriented architects. And a lot of times he probably takes more pleasure out of slapping them down and saying, yeah, that's great, but you can't do that.
Jeez. Welcome to architecture. Jeez.
Yeah.
The initiation.
So exactly.
Let's take a moment and talk about the sponsor of this episode. Enscape is a leading real-time rendering and virtual reality tool for the global AEC market. It plugs directly into your modeling software, giving you an integrated design and visualization process. With Enscape, you can render in real time and walk stakeholders through your rendered model with incredible ease. Your buildings can be experienced long before they are built. More than 200,000 unique monthly users from over 150 countries use Enscape to envision better designs. To learn more or to sign up for a free 14-day trial, visit enscape3d.com/archispeak today. That's enscape3d.com/archispeak.
In the last few years, premium outdoor spaces have become a must-have architectural feature. And Infratech outdoor electric heating systems have become the brand of choice among leading architects. Infratech heaters provide energy-efficient, ambient warmth that allows homeowners to live outdoors during the cooler months. Clients love them because they can enjoy 100 more nights a year outside. Architects love them because of their unparalleled versatility, from their heater capacities and their colors to mounting options that can either seamlessly disappear or accentuate a space with beautiful decorative coverings. They are also the only comfort heating company that offers smart integration and hands-free voice-activated control. For over 60 years, Infratech has made their products in the USA at competitive prices. They offer incredible design and live technical support at every stage of the job. Infratech is specified at the world's most prestigious properties. Learn why and sign up for a free consultation at infratech-usa.com/podcast. I, for one, appreciate the design options you get with Infratech because as the cooler months approach the Mid-Atlantic region, we're looking to extend those outdoor days, and Infratech heaters provide comfort without being large and in your face.
It's interesting to think about how schools have never had to deal necessarily with this IPAL program before and having to now kind of, if they're willing to take it on and offer that as a way to attract students, to say, because that's what schools are in the business of doing, is attracting students to their program, getting the best possible students they can so that they can then show the work and brag about their program to attract more students. That is the business of the universities these days. And so it's hard for them to let go of the way they've always done things because that is their tradition and it's their portfolio. Everybody knows what it's like to try to completely change a giant machine. It's practically impossible.
Right.
And so now that institutions are faced with the possibility of having to change a program to adapt to this IPAL situation, it rewrites how you approach education. Because before, the schools would focus on one thing that they felt was their, value, which in many cases at schools is design, right? Because that's the sexy thing that people want to go learn how to do, even if they're not going to end up doing that in the profession as their main role on a project. They still want to go to a design school because it's exciting and it's a training like you've never had anywhere else. It's amazing, right? And so I get that part of it. And now there's this other thing where it's like you can graduate and be licensed doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go out and start designing buildings for everybody. Everybody knows that this is still a service industry, right? I mean,
Right.
Clients
Right.
have to find you and trust you and pay you to do the thing. And if they don't trust you to be able to deliver, then they're not going to hire you. So that's not really a force they have to reckon with. But before, like the schools relied on the AXP or IDP, depending on which version you are a part of, and the after graduation experience that people gained. They would say, no, that's the job of the firm to do that training, because we don't do it in school. We don't train them in business. We don't train them in practice. We don't know all the different offices' standards. So a lot of schools even stopped teaching how to use certain programs, apps, because it didn't matter to the school which app they used to deliver their projects. Just deliver beautiful projects. Like, you figure it out, student. It's on you now. And then when you go work for a firm, honestly, I think it's the better choice of the two, is to say, let the firm train you in the technology, because you actually don't want the bad habits that students bring to the table. Firms, you don't.
True.
100% don't. And they're so good at learning, they can pick anything up. You just have to teach them. So that might mean you have to have a training program in your firm to teach that the way that you want it to be done, which is extra effort on your part. And I mean, to me, this is, everybody wants to fight about all this stuff, right? It's your job to do that. No, it's your job to do that. No, I wish the schools would do all the things. And it's like, well, schools can't do all the things. There's still a limited amount of time and a limited amount of bandwidth to be able to pull that off. So, man, this is a tough problem. And yet the whole profession needs more architects.
Right. Oh my gosh, yes.
And yet it's a very exclusive club. So we love telling people that they're not architects, and yet we need more of them. And so it's this really weird, messed up, dysfunctional family that we've got. And like, I just published this episode on my other show. Like, we are at a tipping point, people. This world will move on without us. It does not care if we are a part of it or not. We have to care. It's on us to come up for air and say, hey, is this a landscape worth living in the way it is right now, this profession? Because if it's not, like, let's redesign it. And there aren't enough people stepping away from the deadlines that they have on a weekly basis. Like, that is seriously the life of an architect, right? It's a weekly deadline for something.
I feel like you're pointing fingers.
Yeah. Is this personal? No.
Very much is.
But it is, right? It's like that. And so how do we get out of that weekly deadline mindset to say, what is the professional mindset? How are we going to be in the future? How are we going to attract more architects? What does the education look like? What does the licensing look like? What does the professional setting look like? Who does what? And it's not to say everybody has to do it the same, because that's never going to happen. We do need to offer choice and difference so that people can pick their talents and put those in the right places, because not everybody needs to be the same thing, for sure. So this is something, though, that I feel totally charged up. It's like a call to action for our profession to say, get your head out of your ass, come up for air, survey the landscape, and talk together, not just in your firm and not just in your firm and not just in your school and not just in your school, to say, how do we all pick our piece to move this forward together? Because if we don't, man, I'm serious, nobody cares if architects are going to be a part of the future or not. If they don't have to use architects, they won't, period. Everybody knows convenience wins everything. So that's what technology has proven. Like, if you want your alcohol delivered instead of you driving to the store to get it, you can have that. That's convenience. It's going to win, as an example. But that's where everything's going. So if it's more convenient to not use an architect, heck yeah, they will. They'll choose that 100% of the time, because that's what people do. That's human behavior.
And when we started talking about this, just this part of it, and I was thinking, let's take that part out of the schools and let the profession kind of like train them. And then I started to kind of like daydream a little bit about, well, what if we start, developing just these, there are, in theory, AIA national standards for like BIM and documentation and all of these other things, but rarely does anybody ever follow them. And then as you kept talking, I was thinking of like, well, we don't really necessarily want, it's like, yes, we want everybody to do the same quality of work, but the whole point of like competition and like variety and everything else, isn't that everybody does it the same. It's that everybody does it just different enough where you want to get that variety. You want to get that, change. Hell, we don't want that like punch card, like kind of mentality. It's like,
sure.
At first I was like, yeah, maybe we need these standards. And then I was like, and within a few seconds, I was like, maybe we don't.
No, but you want a solid foundation that everybody can build their value proposition on top of independently. And that is really what it needs to be. But there has to be an agreement and there is at some level, like you mentioned, as far as like standard of care and code of ethics and things like that do need to be shared values across the ecosystem of architecture and the building industry. And I guess I even see this is a huge problem beyond just architecture. So when we talk about consultants, when we talk about building product manufacturers, when we talk about contractors and the lack of trust that exists between these different silos for lots of reasons, lots of history there, there's lots of baggage there. So we have to come up for air and not only survey our piece of the building industry, right? As we have to do that in addition to our profession. And I don't know how we do that unless people are willing to do that, because it seems like there are a lot of people willing to do that, and they're the ones who are involved at the AIA level, and they are contributing to our professional organization. But everybody knows that professional organizations run with skeleton crews and limited budgets. This is a tough thing because not very many people of the total choose to serve in that way. So that's a tough job as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do we dedicate people from our firms as this is a valuable thing worth doing when there's the mentality in the firm, like you've got to be billable 95% of the time. But you can't do anything well with the other 5% of your time. That's not dedication.
Billable 90% of the time.
110% of the time? 150% of the time? If you could work more and only bill me for the 40 per week, that'd be great.
Here's a sick thing, and I'm sure everybody's done it. And if they have, shame on all of us. If they haven't, good for you. But there was times when I would just say, well, you only pay me for 40 hours, so I'm just going to put 40 hours down. And then I got to the point where I'm like, dude, I am killing myself on these projects. I'm going to legitimately do this, because then I started to realize the real value of making sure that everybody understood my true hours. It wasn't, oh, hey, Cormac's, killing himself on this project. It was to display that Cormac is killing himself on this project means that Cormac needs help, and this is something that we need.
You can't prove it unless you document it. Yep.
Exactly. And, is it legitimate that, we're saying that for Cormac's time and for this person's time and this person's time, it's 40 hours when the project's really telling us that it's not just Cormac's 40 hours, but it's another person's 40 hours and it's another person's 40. And so if we said that it was 3 people for this project, but those 3 people are working for basically the same amount of hours as 6 people, then it's really 6 people need to staff this project, because that's the level of work that this particular project needs. Or you assess the project and it's just like, well, where's the inefficiencies? Or if it is efficiencies, then why are we not staffing this project properly? And
the whole education system and the whole professional licensure system is not based on a time-based system.
Right.
It is not. How many hours does it take to do the design for this studio?
Yeah.
It takes all of them.
Exactly.
That's the answer. It takes all of the hours. And for some people, that's less. And for some people, that's more. And on the next project, that might be flipped. It might take one person less and it might take another person more. This whole time for money thing in architecture is totally broken, 100% broken.
Yeah. So I'll open a little bit of current wounds. peel off my Band-Aid a little bit here. But so we've had this conversation in the office with, the project team and stuff. It's specifically about there's so many demands. International project, it's like the first time I've kind of experienced something like this. So they're like, client has a PMC and they are box checkers. Well, I mean, they were hired to be box checkers. They were hired to say that, develop a standard for all of these different projects, we want you to develop a standard that everybody kind of like works towards so that we know we're getting a value for our money out of like all of these and stuff. And so to your point, this architecture for money kind of thing, time for money thing, is
architecture for money would be fine.
I'm sorry. I realized after I said, I'm like, that's not what
I like
said.
That. That's the new slogan, architecture for money. Thank you. Pay me.
Exactly. But everybody's just like, well, we've committed all of these drawings to Revit, and, because we have all of these other criteria that we have to do for all of these deliverables, I mean, we don't really have to have, we don't have time to change them. But we're in schematic design, and this is the time to change them. This is the time to make sure that we are doing the best job that we possibly can, because not only do we owe it to the client, but we owe it to ourselves to have the highest standard of project delivery that we possibly can. To this, time for money thing, it's just like, well, how much more time do you want from me for this? And it's this interesting conversation that we're having. It's just like, for me, it's just like, you do the design until the design is right. And then others are just like, yeah, but that could take 80 hours a week rather than 40 hours a week.
But you're on salary.
Right.
Let's just go back to that part real quick, because everybody seems to forget that part when they think about profitability.
Yeah. Yes.
If you could spend less hours, that'd be great. What they actually mean is if you could spend half of the hours that I've given you, that would be great, because then it will look more profitable. They're not paying for your overtime. And so there is a genuine incentive to do less on projects because of this system. And yet, like, you're still getting paid the same either way. It's crazy. It's crazy making. Now, I get it. Like, yeah, if you could do it less than the 40 hours per week so that you could work on other projects too. Yeah. Okay. More efficient. I get that. But is that how the office is actually set up? Is that what the principals are actually okaying and signing up for when they sign on a new client and a project? I don't think they're thinking like that. It's like, no, we're going to put a small team. We're going to understaff this project. Understaffing is common business in this profession because people do give away their hours to work on projects. They're trained that way in school. And then we'll deal with the carnage later. That's it. We will throw other people, which will make it way less efficient because we have to train those people, the standards on this project later. Well, yep, we're willing to do that because it means we're going to be, quote unquote, more profitable now. It's like a shell game. It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like it's crazy making to me that we choose to operate like this and that we can't actually, again, get our heads out of our asses to figure this out. And how valuable is architecture? Does it deserve to exist in the future? If so, if the answer is it's valuable and it does deserve to exist, it cannot continue to operate like this. It makes no sense.
Right.
God, people.
Yeah. So,
Architecture for Money.
Architecture for Money.
The name of my new firm.
And with that, I was out to dinner last night with my wife. Just this time that I actually could like spend with her and not like
a rare occasion.
On this rare occasion
So
when I could actually like, hang out with her and try not to think about the work that I have going on.
Could you please like close the door to work for this occasion? It's so hard.
So, we were sitting in kind of like the pub area of this restaurant, and they had the Meacham's car auction going on. And as we went in...
Like on the TV in the restaurant?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Which, of course, means that it's absolutely the right place for me to be.
Yes, except your wife didn't think that.
No. Funny enough that she was the one facing the TV, not me.
Okay.
And she was just like, oh, check that out.
She's like, you'll like this. Oh, she's so nice.
I know.
You're lucky.
That's That's why I love her.
That's awesome.
But so they had this brand new 2021 Ford Bronco rolling across the auction block.
Why pay full price when you can pay more at auction?
Why pay full price when you can pay $90,000?
It must have been like an early serial number.
It might have been '01. Who knows? I obviously couldn't catch that one, but $90,000 for a brand new Ford Bronco.
So you can't afford it as an architect, is what you're saying. I get it.
It's just like a fully decked out Ford Bronco. Don't get me wrong, a brand new Ford Bronco can cost upwards to 70, fully tricked out and everything else, which I still don't understand. The
trucks these days are insanely crazy expensive. Everybody wants a truck. Everyone wants an SUV. Yeah.
But, I guess it's you're right. It's either like, what serial number was that particular vehicle? Was it like
or whose signature was in Sharpie on the dashboard or something?
Exactly.
Had to be something.
But it's just like, you look at it and you're just like, wait, like, why would somebody, and then not only you're paying the $90,000, asking price for it, but you're also paying like the auction fees and things like that.
That's just the new retail price. And then you got to pay all the fees on top of that.
So here I of course just I just went on to shop.ford.com Bronco. And so looking at like
a little window shopping here on the show. Yeah.
So looking at the highest, like the most tricked out version of all of these. And I'm kind of clicking on the 4-door version because everything was 4-door, or that particular vehicle was a 4-door version. So you have a starting price of $38,000 or up to $48,000 for the fully loaded Black Diamond version.
You know how many vacations I can go on? Like that's like $800 and something a month if you finance that.
I hear you.
Crazy.
I hear you.
So how many?
So
what can I do for $800 a month? How do people pay for these? I see people driving around in Teslas and stuff, and I'm just like, you spend like 1% of your day in that car. What can people afford this kind of thing?
I hear you. So all right, the Wild Track version of this particular 4-door, and that's the one with that's like the fully tricked out one. It's the most expensive 4-door model, is $49,475, right?
Without floor mats, yeah.
Without floor mats and all that.
Got to get the floor mats.
So let's just say it's $50,000 that somebody was willing to pay $40,000 more dollars over sticker for this.
It's got to be the serial number. It's got to be like the collectible. It's got to be part of it. Because in the future, they're never going to drive this thing either. So it's an investment. Yeah. Like people are investing.
Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'd love to have like one of those, and drive across the Trans-America Trail, bring it on home.
You would actually use it.
I would actually use it, but I mean,
it's a garage queen at that. For that price,
when I watch some of these auctions, like either Barrett Jackson or Meacham's, and I'm like looking at all of the money that people are dropping for some of these vehicles, and you're just like
I'm in the wrong business. Let's go back to that AXP and IPAL program and all that stuff so that you can barely survive when you graduate.
Exactly.
I laugh, and it's so freaking sad. Jesus.
Well, but you think about it, it's just like, are you really going to drive a $2.3 million car on a daily basis?
No, it's an investment. I mean, I think it's a genuine investment opportunity for many people. See it that way.
So back to that AXP, and IPAL. I wonder if starting your career off with the licensure and actually giving yourself a leg up
might get you somewhere faster.
I
love how you brought this back to a lesson. That's great.
There you go.
Thank you. Thanks to Enscape for their support of this episode. Visit enscape3d.com/Archispeak today for a free 14-day trial.
Thank you to Infratech Outdoor Comfort Heating for their support of this episode of Archispeak. And remember, you can visit Infratech at infratech-usa.com/podcast to sign up for a free consultation Learn why Infratech is the choice for bringing indoor comfort to outdoor living.
Thanks for listening. This show is part of the Gable Media Podcast Network. See all the shows at gablemedia.com. That's GABLMEDIA.com. You can help support what we're doing here by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to help get the word out, and don't forget to share it with your friends. We'd love to hear from you, so leave a comment on the website at archispeakpodcast.com, where you can find our entire catalog of shows. Talk to you soon.